Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome to this recorded lecture of our introduction to Agatha Christie and her novel Murder on the Orient Express. I love watching The Office, so the title of this particular lecture is called Murder, Not Mukduk, because in one of the very excellent episodes, a character named Dwight Schrute tries to convince other people that R is a very menacing kind of sound, and that's why they call it murder, so the word sounds scarier. So hence the title, just in case you don't watch The Office. Now it makes sense. So as we look ahead into this book, as you've already read through several of the chapters of Murder on the Orient Express, I want to give you a little bit of contextual information to help deepen our understanding of the text, kind of get an idea of where Agatha Christie was coming from and what some of her real-life inspirations might have been for this story. So a little bit about Agatha Christie. She is known for her 66 detective novels and 14 short story collections. Most of her detective novels revolve around two primary characters, Hercule Poirot, who's a Belgian detective, and Miss Marple, who is, I like to picture her as like a crazy cat lady who lives in a little village and like has her nose in other people's business. Christie also wrote the world's longest running play. It's a murder mystery called The Mousetrap. It did get made into a movie, which was quite entertaining, starring the amazing Nathan Lane, who, if you've watched The Lion King, he is also the voice of Timon. So, fun trivia fact for you when you get on Jeopardy. She also wrote 6 romances under the pen name, or fake name, Mary Westmacott. They were not excellent stories. So it's probably good that she was using that pseudonym. So when we think of Agatha Christie, we just think excellent murder mysteries. Guinness World Records list Agatha Christie as one of the best-selling novelists of all time. Her novels have sold over 2 billion copies, and her estate claims that her works come in third in the rankings of the world's most widely published books, behind only Shakespeare and the Bible. So if you looked at all the books in the world, the Bible sells the most copies, then comes Shakespeare, and then comes Agatha Christie. So this lady is wildly popular and has a lot of really great things to say. One of the reasons why she is so popular is that she connects with her reader even long after her demise. Some interesting tidbits about Agatha Christie. She was a very cool lady, but a bit odd, as many authors are. She faked her own disappearance and death when her husband asked for a divorce. And a great show called Drunk History even did an episode on Agatha Christie's disappearance. I'll post that link for you right below this PowerPoint lecture so you can watch through that and enjoy it at your leisure. She disappeared into the countryside. Everyone thought she might be dead. Then she came back and said, my husband's a terrible person. I'm going to divorce him. And then she went on to write a whole bunch of novels and continue her wild popularity and her amazing success in writing. Not only did her own disappearance and her own adoption of some disguises and that kind of intrigue inspire her, also she gained a lot of real-life inspiration from outside sources, things she read in the newspaper or things she experienced. For example, she was helping on the medical front in World War I. She worked as a pharmacist for some time, and so when she poisons her characters, she has a real good idea of how all that would work, because she's got that real-life experience to inform her. The real-life inspiration for the writing of Murder on the Orient Express, it actually was a real-life unsolved case of a kidnapping and subsequent murder of Charles Lindbergh's 2-year-old son. On March 1st, 1932, Charles Lindbergh, who was a very famous airplane pilot, very, very rich, very popular. He had a lot of economic clout, a lot of social clout, and a lot of political clout. So this guy was headlining all the time. In terms of how popular he was in American culture, think the Kardashians. Like, that's the level he was at. He was a really popular guy. So on March 1st, 1932, Charles Lindbergh Jr., the 20-month-old son of Charles Lindbergh, was abducted from his home, and on May 12th, his body was discovered nearby. It was a huge tragedy, was front page of the paper for months and months and months. There was a lot of political pressure, as you might guess, because this was a very popular family. They had a lot of money, they had a lot of power, and so there was a lot of pressure to solve this case quickly to wrap it up. So in what was called the trial of the century, a man named Bruno Hauptmann was convicted and sentenced to death for first-degree murder. However, he professed his innocence up until his death by electric chair. And some of the evidence, and you can't see me, but I'm using air quotes around evidence, they used to convict Hauptmann was circumstantial at best. Because of all this pressure to find a guilty party, there is some theories that those in charge kind of just found a scapegoat, because they said Bruno Hauptmann had tools and wood in his house that he could have used to construct a ladder, and a ladder was used to kidnap the child. However, Bruno Hauptmann also worked as a carpenter, so it's pretty normal for carpenters to have wood and tools at their house. So circumstantial evidence at best, right? So a lot of pressure to find a guilty party. Bruno Hauptmann ended up being the scapegoat. But that kind of mysterious surrounding of who really took this child, why did the murder take place? There were a bunch of ransom notes. This whole thing was very convoluted, very complex, lots of drama. So that kind of stuff, of course, is going to inspire a murder mystery writer to want to find out more. So she wrote Murder on the Orient Express to kind of create some closure in the fictional world. So in The Belgian Detective, Hercule Poirot boards a train traveling the Orient Express route on his way back to London after solving a case in Syria, and a group of 13 very unique people also get on the train with him. Shortly after the train's departure, a man is murdered. Shocker, spoiler alert. Not really, because the title of the book is Murder on the Orient Express, so we should not be terribly surprised that a murder does indeed take place on the train. So a man is murdered, and everyone on board is a suspect. Newspaper reviews of the book were shining. Folks loved this book, and I hope you enjoy it too. It's one of my favorites. So the little gray cells, the newspaper said, solve once more the seemingly insoluble. Miss Christie makes an improbable tale very real and keeps her readers enthralled and guessing to the end. So I hope you also get to enjoy the twist at the end. It's quite fun. A little bit about the main character. Hercule Poirot is one of Christie's most famous and long-lived characters. He appears in 33 of her novels, which is half. If you remember, she wrote 66 novels, so he appears in half of those. And more than 50 short stories published between 1920 and 1975. So he is one of her favorite people to write. And hopefully you can see why by the end of this novel. I just love her use of descriptive language, though, when she talks about Hercule Poirot. In another book, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, she writes, he was hardly more than 5 feet 4 inches tall, but carried himself with great dignity. His head was exactly the shape of an egg, and he always perched it a little to one side. His mustache was very stiff and military. Even if everything on his face was covered, the tips of mustache and pink-tipped nose would be visible. The neatness of his attire was almost incredible, and I believe a speck of dust would have caused him more pain than a bullet wound. That's fabulous descriptive language, guys. Picture this. This guy is a world-renowned detective, right? He solved every case that has baffled everyone else that's tried to accomplish it. And he shows up on this train, and people are like, oh my goodness, the famed Belgian detective is coming. And around the corner comes this tiny little guy, 5 feet 4 inches tall. Not terribly tall. If you think in terms of, like, famous people, Tom Cruise is, 5 foot 6 inches tall, I think, and everyone says that he's real short in terms of Hollywood. They have to, like, make him stand on risers so that his leading ladies aren't taller than he is. So 5 foot 4 inches is on the shorter side of the masculine average, right? And he carried himself with great dignity, so he's kind of got a Napoleon complex, right? Excuse me. It's not COVID, don't worry. His head was exactly the shape of an egg, and he always perched it a little to one side. So he's got an egg-shaped head, and it's crooked. And he also has giant mustaches, big curly mustache. And his clothes are so neat that he would rather be shot than have them dirty. Like, that's a crazy person to kind of deal with. And so that level of OCD, just oddness, coming onto the train, solving a mystery is going to be really fun. Agatha Christie deals a lot in archetypes in her work, so I want to define archetype for you. It's a constantly recurring symbol or motif in literature, painting, or mythology, and we can break this word down into its Latin roots: archean, meaning beginning or origin, and typos, meaning pattern or model. So an archetype is an original pattern or model that you can see play out over and over and over in stories. Carl Jung, if you like psychology, said that there were universal mythic characters that reside in the collective unconscious of people all over the world. So he says everyone's got this idea of what a normal story is and what normal characters look like: a hero, a villain, that sort of thing. And so we keep seeing the same model over and over because everyone's brain is kind of basically the same. If you want to see a visual of that played out, this is a nice chart for you about a couple different movie series and the archetypes that we can find in them. So the hero is an archetype. We're used to seeing that character pop up a bunch. Same with the enemy or the villain. You know, if there's a hero, there's got to be a bad guy, right? The ancient mystagogue is a wise old man who helps the hero. You can see lots of examples of that in Harry Potter, Star Wars, The Matrix, Lord of the Rings, and even Finding Nemo. The threshold guardian is the first big problem the hero has to overcome. Shapeshifters are characters you're not sure if they're good or bad, really, until the end of the story. And the trickster offers comic relief, gives you a chance to laugh even when things are getting tense. If you think about your favorite movies or your favorite stories, you can probably find characters that fall in each of these categories, which is why archetypes are so profound and so pervasive. Theme is also really important in novels, so pay attention to theme. Major themes and minor themes are different. Minor themes are just small ideas throughout the text. A major theme is what it really revolves around. So in this particular book, we're going to be examining the themes of justice and revenge, trying to figure out how those two disparate terms work together in this novel. And so later on this week in the discussion boards, we're going to kind of talk about some big ideas. We're going to try and define justice. What is it? Do we have a responsibility to protect the innocent? Does evil exist? If so, do we have a responsibility to confront that? And should people face consequences for their actions? We're going to be talking about these in the discussion boards in the coming days, but do think about them as you're going through your reading of Murder on the Orient Express. There's a lot of talk about justice. There are innocent people involved in the murder. There is evil that people have to confront, and as we learn more about Samuel Ratchet, we might define him as an evil person. And do you think people should face consequences for their actions? That's a big question that many of the characters wrestle with in this novel. So as you're reading through it, you've already read through chapters 1 through 5, but as you continue your reading, pay attention to these kind of ideas. It'll help deepen your understanding and help you as we get into our essays in the coming weeks. As always, if you have any questions, reach out. I'm here to help. Send me an email or message me through Canvas. Enjoy your reading of the book, guys, and let me know if you have any questions.